Welcome to another of Van Cortlandville Historical Society's educational videos. In this winter time, you might be thinking about, weren't people cold back then in the 18th century? And the truth is, not really. They actually knew a lot about how to keep warm. For themselves, that meant a lot of layers. If you've seen our previous video about 18th century clothes, even under normal circumstances, they wore multiple layers underneath their clothing. In the summer, they might have worn lighter kerchiefs that were mostly for modesty or fashion. In the winter, they would choose a heavier, wider one. The one I'm wearing is made of wool. This would have been a very popular material in the wintertime because it holds in the most heat. For the hands, there were a lot of different choices of gloves. They did have mittens or the regular fingered gloves, but things like muffatees would actually have been very popular. You can see it's long, so it covers what would have been a bare arm otherwise. It also has the openings for both my fingers and my thumb, so I could still do work. I could knit, I could sew, and do all of my various chores that I need my dexterity for, and still be keeping warm.
In addition to choosing warmer materials to make the clothes from, different styles allowed for warmth as well. Today, we think of quilts mainly as blankets, but in the 18th century, quilted clothing was very popular. Here we see a quilted petticoat, which a woman might have worn as her skirt, while for men, jackets and vests could also have been worn. Quilted refers to something made up of 3 layers, 2 outer layers of fabric with insulation called batting in between. The batting could have been shreds of old cloth, or bits of wool that could not be used for spinning. In order to keep the batting evenly spread for full insulation, every few inches would have to be sewn together through all 3 layers. While this was mostly for the practical purpose of keeping everything in place, most people would create designs and interesting patterns in order for the garment to look more appealing.
All of these could have been worn indoors. Going outdoors, of course, you would want extra layers. One of the most common would be a cloak, which is also made of wool, which just drapes around the shoulders with a clasp. So now I have a nice warm, almost like a blanket around me. I could wear an extra hat, or I could simply pull up my cloak's hood to keep my head warm.
In addition to the cold, the winter can bring snow and slush, which can melt and create mud in roads, making traveling by foot difficult, especially if you want to keep your shoes clean and dry. Pattens could be tied to the bottom of a woman's regular shoes, and with the attached wood or metal risers, would lift her feet a few inches above the ground. Hopefully, this would be enough to be away from any of the snow or mud.